Hello, and welcome to another episode of 60 Minutes With. I'm your host, Crystal Petrie. Today, if you have a large business, a small business, a nonprofit, if you are baking cookies out of your kitchen, this podcast is for you. I am blessed enough to have brand experts Caitlin Penny on the show. And also, I'm going to explain to you why she is my first, but hopefully not my last. Caitlin, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, how are you?
I am doing excellent. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me on here. I've been looking forward to it.
And thank you so much for agreeing to be on the podcast and really educate my audience and educate my viewers on branding, which we hear about all the time, but I'm not quite sure people really understand exactly what it is. Would you agree with that?
A little bit, yes. I feel like people are starting to improve on that one, but
Mhm.
it encompasses a lot of different things. So, I guess a good question would be, where do you start with branding too?
Yes, yes. So let's okay, so that'll be our first question.
All right.
Well, maybe my second question. First, what is branding for people so they will know exactly what that is?
So, branding is a lot of different things. You have your business, but it's also the experience you provide your customers. It is the logo. The logo proves as the tip of the iceberg. It's also how you treat people, what kind of products and services you have, your brand voice, the photos, the colors and fonts that you use. It's everything that makes your business whole. It's not just your logo on a piece of paper.
Okay. So that's great. So branding is everything. It's not just one thing.
Correct.
When do you start? For your question, when do you start branding? Is there like a specific time that you started, like
Mm.
before you get your LLC? Do you start branding after you get your LLC?
Okay.
Or okay,
So I would want you to have a name. So when you
okay,
name your business and file the LLC, let's hop out the gate and do it right the first time. Now, I realize that people may be in different stages of business. And if you're a startup, um, there's a lot of different things, a lot of different costs that you have to do. So a lot of people bootstrap in the beginning. And I just want to say that that's completely okay because there are so many things that happen inside of a business that you have to figure out first. And since you are the owner of your own business, you also are growing as a person, and that means your business is also evolving with you. So it's okay to have something in the beginning, but I guarantee that 2 years down the line, it will be a lot more focused and you'll have to revisit that. And I would say, while you have the bones, the guts, maybe some colors and fonts and a logo, this is a time to relook at it and make sure that you're connecting with the audience that you want to connect with. And the brand encompasses everything, including the verbiage on your website to explain exactly what you do, because we want to make sure that you're talking to the right people.
and you mentioned bootstrap. So explain to us what that is.
Well, I think if anyone is listening that has started their own business, you kind of have to be scrappy, right? Like, you kind of have to just figure things out in the beginning. I'll be honest, I probably did everything the hard way. I didn't come from a family of entrepreneurs. My mom's a teacher, my dad's an engineer, and so that's not exactly like, hey, this is the grand plan of how to start a business and everything is going to be perfect, right? If anyone out there has started a business, they know that that's not how it works, right? And so, you know, we have to figure it out step by step. And so, what I would suggest for you to do is really sit down and think about mission, vision, values, why you started your business. When we work with our customers, we want to know what makes them tick, right? What they're passionate about. And when we can figure that out, that pretty much rolls into what we call a brand voice. And that just means when I read your blog, I should be able to hear it in your voice as I'm reading it, right? And to backtrack and talk about the scrappiness, you kind of have to figure out everything as you go. And so you may not have a business coach up front. You may not have that grand plan I mentioned, but you're figuring it out along the way of what works, what doesn't work. So it's a lot of beta testing, it's a lot of market research, and we're doing things that may not be completely focused on what we want to be doing because we have to be scrappy and maybe do something over here and offer this over here. But then there comes a time where you have to hyper focus all of that and not stretch yourself too thin because you really can't do it alone, right?
So let's talk about a few of the steps that you mentioned earlier. We'll start with the logo. I feel like is the logo, this is a couple questions. Is the logo the most important part of branding? Number one. And my second question is, how do you know when you have the perfect logo for your business?
Okay. So a logo is a great first step, but I would also suggest you have a business plan and know all of the answers to what I would ask people. We actually have an interview, and you've been through it actually. So there's an interview of questions that we go through, and it talks about you and the business and the target market and branding and design. You have to have answers to those questions, and then the logo comes to life after that. And so when we start to design a logo, yes, it's, I would say, the tip of the iceberg. And so it kind of just pushes you forward. You have an established brand because we want it to be consistent along the way. But at the same time, you got to figure out the steps prior to that first. You got to figure out the why and what we're doing and what kind of packages do you have and what kind of products that you're selling. And to have the perfect logo, I work with a lot of people that haven't designed or redesigned the logo in 30 years, right? Like I mentioned before, you evolve as a person, you evolve as a company, and things change, and you have to pay attention to that. So it's really trusting the gut feeling that you might have, like this was good in the beginning and it got me to where I need to be now. But now that we're in it and we're a few years down the line, what are we focusing on? What is our bread and butter? What's making us the most money? You might have to restructure some things and maybe do an update or a revision. And that's always going to happen. It's just, I could also compare it to a website. They say, in today's world, you have to have the website, but it should be updated every couple of years at minimum. And I'm not saying that you have to do that with a logo, but you have to create a shelf life for this logo that encompasses everything that you do. But then, something might change, and then we have to do a whole revise or a whole revamp of the brand. But I would say having the perfect logo is definitely a subjective thought.
Yeah.
One of the most important things, though, is making sure people know what you do based on the logo type and the logo mark. So I mean the graphic in the logo and what it says. So the tagline also plays a big part in that. And then you go from there. That was a complicated answer, but
Yeah. Okay, so what about the color? And I'm a circle back because I really want to talk to you more and have you explain the business plan aspect of it more, because I feel like the business plan should come before the logo and the colors and all of that. So we're definitely going to circle back to that. But the colors. So tell me, what are the importance of the color of your brand and how do you select those colors?
Okay, so for starters, my number one rule is no more than 3 colors in a logo.
Okay.
And the reason for this is because it has to be clear. Your logo is something that someone looks at, they know exactly what you do, there's a clear message. They should walk away or walk up towards you and have a conversation saying, I know exactly what you do, I'm ready to go. Right? It's not a moment for, while there's creativity in a logo, it's not a moment to, be Van Gogh. You're not making a painting that's, my best comparison would be, I go to a lot of art museums. I enjoy art, but the one thing that everyone says is art is subjective. I could look at the same art piece as you and see something completely different than you are and what your interpretation is. You don't want that to happen with a logo because then it just confuses people and they may not think that they're the right person for you or you're the right person for them. You don't want that to happen. And so you have to be very clear. There's also a lot of psychology that goes behind the color of a logo. And a good example would be, healthcare. A lot of healthcare logos are blue and green. Blue and green mean health and wellness, maybe a little bit of purple, but they're usually cooler colors because let's be honest, blood is red.
Yeah.
So if you have a red healthcare, maybe some people are a little bit turned off by that. And it's not like they're going to say that out loud. It's more about what the internal psychology is turning on. Okay, I associate red with having an injury. I'm not going to go to a red healthcare because I don't exactly trust them, maybe. Where it was a calming color, green is a healthy and wealthy color, and you want those things for your health, not so much the red part. Same thing for a bank. You don't want red because it looks like you're in the negative, right? You want green because it looks like you have money.
Yes.
So I hope that kind of paints a picture.
Yes. And I also feel like with healthcare and the color blue, greenish, it also invokes like a sense of peace and trust
And trust,
when you
yep.
look at those colors as well. So that,
Absolutely.
yeah, could be a reason as well. Okay, so let's circle back to the business plan. Is there like a number of pages you have to have? What encompasses or what should go into someone's business plan?
I think it really boils down to what you are doing for who to solve what problem. And that's really where you should start. It's the same formula you would use for a 30-second introduction if you were at a networking group. And then you can expand into efforts, marketing efforts, for example, what the step-by-step process is, what you're actually offering in detail. The business plan is a lot more detail. It's everything that will happen from here on out. So you can schedule, or not schedule, but plan, a year in advance. Where do you want to be? What do you want to be offering? What do you want to be doing? But it sort of serves as a blueprint to what the 2-year or 5-year plan. And then that business plan also might change. And so you have to take it step by step, but it does give you an overview and it helps you backtrack your time of what you should be focusing on now. Is it moving me towards that success mark or is it holding me back? Right. And it's just a guide for you to follow because you want to accomplish a certain goal.
Now, with the business plan, I know you were stating like with the logo that needs to be revamped or revised every 2-3 years, something like that, because you're evolving, like your business is evolving. At least it should be growing and changing. So would you say the same thing about the business plan? Should that be revised and updated every 2-3 years as well?
It's definitely something that you want to pay attention to. I don't, it really depends on the business, so I don't have a solid answer for that. But when you come up with a plan, like I said, there's usually a step-by-step process. So again, it doesn't matter how many pages it is, it just matters what problem you're solving and how and in what timeline. And so maybe you've wrote this business plan for only 2 years and then you have to revisit it because you don't have a plan now. So it just depends.
So you
also,
are,
sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, and things might also change in your perspective. You might be shifting as a business. You can use the pandemic as a perfect example for that. Even us, I was a one-woman show. I was offering logo design and design itself and a little bit of print, but I was also big into the vendor trade show space. Well, that completely died. So what are we going to do now? are we treading in water? But maybe my business plan doesn't really apply to this because who planned for COVID? Probably
No
no
one.
one. Right? So you now have to figure it out, and everyone hates the word, but I'll use it is what how did you pivot? You know? And like, so I will use transition. So our transition was that we were morphing into a digital marketing
Mhm.
agency because I had all of these partners. I had all of these people helping me and taking our clients from the first step to the last step. But it's phased out, but that wasn't planned for. And so the business plan had to be revisited.
So let's talk about you and your business for a little bit. How did you get into entrepreneurship, that field, and then how did you eventually, I guess, work? I don't know if you started out like in the branding space or if you kind of transitioned
Mhm. Mhm.
into that space because I know you said you got that. You see how I did
Yep.
that? Thank you. I know you said your mom was a teacher, your dad was an engineer, so like entrepreneur was not, kind of in the household as you
Mhm.
were growing up. So let's talk a little bit about you and your background with it.
Well, it was a weird little duckling. Art has always played a major role in my life.
Mhm.
I grew up in the East Coast. I'm from New Jersey. So, that being said, my parents were like, well, if we're going to do this, we're going to do this right. If you really want to be a quote unquote artist of some sort when you grow up, right? What does that even mean? Well, that means they put me through art school after school. I was in every mall art contest imaginable. I really went hard as far as being artistic goes.
Mhm.
And so I explored all the different mediums and found out what I like to do best. And when all it after that, all it took was a yearbook class in high school to decide that I wanted to be a graphic designer because it morphed art and the digital space together for me.
Okay.
And some people think that you have to know how to draw to be a designer. I would say it very much helps because I am that person, but you don't have to be. It's digital art is different. It's just like, drawing versus pencil versus on an iPad. It's different. But then I graduated high school when I was 17. I also started college when I was 17
Wow.
and I was ready to roll. So I went to art school, obviously. And I went for 3 years straight, never took a break because I loved
What?
it so much. And I graduated on my 21st birthday. That was my own gift to myself. And so in the meantime, from that was 2013, 2016 is when I started Copper Theory Creative. In the meantime, I worked at print production centers. I worked at an art all women's print shop. I worked at a media firm. I worked at a consulting firm. I worked at the Arizona Animal Welfare League, being on their marketing team. So I did gain the experience in those 3 years. And while I was working at the all women owned print shop, I started my business. So I guess the first thing I did was come up with a name. And that name took me 4 months to come up with.
Wow. Okay.
And then I filed the LLC, and it was another birthday present to myself. And it just happened to go kind of year by year and me learning how to do everything. Like I said, I started out as a graphic designer and brand expert. And at the time, I just called myself a logo designer, right?
Okay.
And the reason why, well, I would say one of the reasons why is in art school, they tell you that logo development is the hardest thing that you can possibly get into. So
Why?
naturally, uh, a lot of different psychology. You have to work with a bunch of people. Um, it's hard to encapsulate everything into a logo. It is hard work. It does have a process that goes into it, and that's part of the reason why we require an interview up front is because I need to know all of the things to make this vision come to life. So
Mhm.
naturally, I was like, challenge accepted. That's what my job is now. And I had a great time. I started out small. A few years went by doing the same thing. That's when the pandemic started to hit. I think it was the end of 2019. So right before all of that
Ooh.
happened, I got a business coach. And the business coach was like, "What are you doing?" Because I felt like I was plateauing. I saw her speak at a conference. 20 minutes out of the 30-minute session, I was like, "Please help me."
Yeah.
And, I now speak on stage. I have packages that I sell. At the time, I was selling logos for about $600. We all know that's not what it is now.
Mhm.
I didn't have a plan. I didn't have a team. I was just flying by the seat of my pants because, again, no, didn't grow up with that or didn't go to school for business, right? So there was no, this is the path to victory. And there really isn't with business. There might be a sort of loose blueprint to things,
Mhm.
but it still is your own brand. And so it's been a journey, I'll say, but that's why I actually like helping the companies that we help now with their branding because it is so important. And if I could go back and tell myself not to just wing it
Right.
until I figure it out, that would have been super helpful. And that's part of the reason why I did get a business coach because, I tripled my income in the first year, doubled it the next two. And so there was definitely steps to take to organize things on the back end. There's a funny, well, not so funny because for me it's true, but a stereotype for creative people
Mhm.
and that is they hate processes and systems. Just let me design something, right? I will be the first one. I'm raising my hand for anybody listening via audio here, but I will be the first person to admit that that was me. And so you can't run a business by yourself, and you certainly can't run a business if you're not paying attention to something like, I don't know, numbers.
Yeah.
I can draw numbers. And so you definitely have to create a plan for financial, you have to create a plan for growth, you have to create a plan for branding, you have to create a team plan. And there has to be a system and process for each one of those things. And I think being a resource for people now for those needs, and then knowing those things up front, going back to the business plan conversation, it's super helpful to be like, okay, well, this is what we need to do next to accomplish something. You
Mhm.
just can't say you're putting on a workshop without having a back end CRM or having a speaker sheet or having a curriculum for the workshop that people are showing up, and then you have to get them to show up. Like that's a lot of
Right.
back work to do one thing, right? Like there's work here to get done to have me on this podcast. We had to
Mhm.
talk, we had to know each other. You have a list. I know that it's going really well because you have so many good people coming up on the podcast. So everything needs a plan.
Yeah. Well, you know what they say about plans? If you don't plan, you plan to fail.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
And don't do it alone.
Yeah.
You cannot grow it alone.
So how did you know and you needed a business coach? I know you said you saw her like speaking on stage.
Mm-hmm.
How did you know like, okay, this is my next step? Like this is the next thing that I need to do?
Well, usually you start your business for a reason that you like. You're
Mhm.
passionate about something. That was art for me. It was designing things. That's great. How are we making this sustainable? How are we making more money? Because ultimately there's only so many hours of the day I can bill for design. And so if I'm not charging enough, if I'm not organizing my time correctly, if I'm not creating packages or a customer journey, I'm gonna plateau, and that's exactly what I was doing.
Okay.
So, I didn't have any of those tools beforehand, no client acquisition, no I was scared to be on a Facebook Live. Now I'm on a podcast. So now I
Yay.
speak on stage,
Mhm.
and there are certain things, how if you wanna make I guess it does come back to the numbers. If you wanna make a certain number a year, how much do you have to charge per hour for that to happen, and are you working every hour of the day? Because I'm sure you have things to do besides that. Are you
Right.
networking? Are you creating a customer funnel? So again, all of those processes and systems on the back end are something that need to be established. And also I didn't know how to talk about myself. I was
Mhm.
not confident to be on stage, like I said. So how am I supposed to sell things if I'm not confident enough in my number, in my sales, in
Right.
the work that I do? because people won't buy that.
Right.
If you don't believe in yourself, how can anybody else?
Mm-hmm. It's true. It's true. Okay, so let's get back to our branding.
Mhm.
You also are, I would assume, proficient in marketing it as well.
Mm.
Is branding and marketing the same thing?
I love this question. Okay, so I'll put it down really easy for you. Are you ready?
Okay. Yes.
Branding is the what, marketing is the how.
Okay, let's say that again.
Branding is the what, marketing is the how.
Okay. Okay. So, with the marketing,
Mhm.
how do we do that?
Well, first you have to have a brand.
Okay, so I feel like you've given us steps.
Yes.
So let me just kind of reinforce what you've talked about. The first step is the business plan.
Mhm.
The second step will be the branding, the logo, the colors, that information. And then now we're on the third step
Right.
with that, and that will be marketing. In
Right.
that order, would that be
Mhm.
correct?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And so once you figure out, you've got a logo, you know what services you offer, you have packages to sell, you can talk about yourself, you can introduce yourself in the room, you're networking, you now need to take that and you have all of this written down per se, but
Mhm.
how are you telling the world about this? Obvious answers would be website,
Mhm.
social media, ads, SEO. I know we were talking about a little bit about that before,
Right.
but what is your game plan to sell things? It comes down to what problem are you solving? You've got the why, you're passionate about what you do, and now you're essentially giving it back to the community saying, hey, I have a tool that will help you, and now you need to tell people that this is the only option. You
Okay.
are the answer to all of their problems as far as getting the brand awareness and credibility out there. And so then you have to establish a process of, okay, we have brand elements such as a logo, fonts, and colors established. What are we doing with it? Okay, well, if we need a website or copywriting for the website, we have to make sure that the verbiage on the site sounds like Caitlin, right?
Mhm.
If they went to my website and then all of a sudden they see Crystal, that doesn't make any sense.
Right. Right.
So I have to see you just like I see you in person, right? And if I see you online and it looks like you're a completely different person selling completely different items, then it doesn't make any sense.
Mhm.
And please don't hate me out there, guys, but a perfect example are realtors. Take
Oh!
take a new headshot. I don't want to see the one from 20 years ago because I can't identify you in a room.
Mhm.
And so if I do my back end research and know that you're going to be at this event, and I said, hey, I need a realtor, and then I show up and I can't find you because I'm looking for someone 20 years younger,
Ah,
you just lost the sale potentially, right?
right.
And so you have to have everything up to date. And I know it sounds like a lot of work, but it also has to be consistent. So you have this brand established on the website, and you now are moving into social media. You have to have consistent graphics. You have to be consistent with the strategy and messaging on there. It has to match what you're offering on the website, and everything has to come full circle. So that's why we actually phase things out when you work with us as a marketing agency, is
Mhm.
because we realize that it's overwhelming, and it's especially overwhelming for one man shows, right? And so there's a bunch of different things that have to play into each other, because yes, you can have a website and it serves again as credibility.
Mhm.
Perfect example would be, I'm speaking on stage. First thing you do is look me up on Google. You find me on
Yes.
Instagram. You find me on a website. You want to make sure I'm legit, even though I'm
Yeah.
standing here in the flesh, right? I'm a real person, but there's something about the internet now that, you know, having social media is like not having or a website in 2005. And don't
That's
even
true.
ask me if you don't have a logo, because I will freak out. there's, as like, I know I'm reverse engineering that, but does that kind of make sense?
Yes.
And so, we don't do, we just don't throw everything at you, but we do want to create a strategy that's essentially hands off, so you don't have to worry about it. Because I know that in one of my talks, it's 5 ways to make sure your brand isn't holding you back.
Mhm.
My favorite tip of that is your Canva subscription does not make you a designer. I'm sorry. Okay. So if you're spending 3 hours in Canva trying to design a flyer that I could have done in 30 minutes, what are you doing? You just lost a sale. You just lost a potential contract. How are you utilizing your time?
Mhm.
And so there's a lot of different things, but have the branding established, have a plan for the business, and then start marketing. It doesn't mean, again, that you have to do everything all at the same time.
Mhm.
Take one thing step by step. Just like on social media, you don't have to be on everything. You don't have to be on every single platform. If you're on Facebook, do Facebook, get good at it. Then you're creating a plan that's instilled in your brain that you're used to, and then move on to Instagram, and then move on to TikTok or whatever. And then you kind of create this habit of consistency where people are used to seeing it. It's like binge watching a show.
Mhm.
If you're on Netflix or whatever streaming service that I know you have, one of them, right? Like
We all do.
one, are you some TV shows drop the whole season and then you binge watch it, right?
Mhm.
There's a consistency there's a consistency in both of these examples, but remember when we used to wait a week to see the next episode, right?
Yes.
There's still consistency. It came on every Tuesday night.
At the
Um,
exact same time.
Right. And
Mhm.
so if people start to look forward to your content, because if you're teaching them the same thing, if you're dropping this podcast the same day of every week, people are looking forward to it. And
Mhm.
then it's brand credibility. It's staying top of mind. And then if you're binge watching the whole thing, you're probably paying a subscription fee, right?
Right.
It's like paying for an entire marketing plan all at one time, but can you do that yourself? Probably not, because you have a business to run, and most people didn't start a business to do marketing or any financials. So those are the people that I would suggest hiring as professionals, because when you get to that point, you shouldn't. You don't. You're out doing all of the things that make your business thrive. It's working on your business, not in your business, right? So you can choose whether to do things step by step or all at one time, but there has to be a strategy.
Now tell us the difference between working in your business and working on your business, and what is the importance of that?
Okay. So everyone has the plan. Everyone wants things to go a certain way. I'll be the first to admit that I am a recovering perfectionist. That means,
Always in recovery.
yes, I had to touch everything. I had to do everything myself because it wasn't perfect or the way someone else saw it. But
Mhm.
guess what? You're not buying yourself. You've already bought into this, okay? So you have to get other people to buy into it. And there's a different approach. It's like, I had an argument the other day about, okay, we have so much work on our plate. Maybe I wish I could just clone myself and then I could get double the work done. Well, I don't think that would work. You know why? Because your brain would work the same way. You would be doing the same steps and it would maybe be repeatable, but innovation, third party viewpoints,
Mhm.
market research, any data, it's not new, it's not fresh. and so I know that, and I just lost my train of thought here. Bring me back.
Cloning yourself, which I,
Yes.
I know I have thought that and said that so
Mhm,
many times, like I need more than just one me. But
mhm,
you're right. If it's okay, you have more than just you, but
mhm,
you're still thinking the same way, you're still doing the same thing.
mhm, mhm. And so you have to have people, you have to allow people to help you.
Mhm. So, okay, with marketing, what would you say is the first thing that needs to be done when you get to the marketing part of it.
Okay. Okay, so depends on what you're planning to do with marketing.
Okay.
But I'll go back to when I said it's full circle, right?
Mhm.
So we want to, I guess the number one thing I would suggest is we have to reverse engineer this. So I need to know what your end goal is.
Okay.
So we'll use social media as an example again. What is your level of success measured at on social media? Some people would say followers. Some people would say engagement. Some people would say, I want to book 6 customers or 6 potential clients on my calendar every month. I need to know what that answer is, because then we'll take that and reverse engineer it into a plan to make that happen. Because again, it's a passive form of marketing. It's
Mhm.
about brand credibility and awareness, and the get rich in 30 days and make $30,000 in 30 days or whatever kind of things that are these quick fixes for people usually don't work. I'm not gonna say
No.
right? Ta-da, surprise. Sorry. There's a rarity where sometimes it does work, but guess what? Even if you're listening to the person who says it worked, that's not the same business plan as you. That's not the same
Right.
product as you. You're not them. And so again, you can't clone yourself and expect the same, perfection to happen. And so I would definitely say know what you want, know what your end goals are, and the best way to do that is do it step by step. Do a 30, 60, 90-day plan instead of a whole year plan, and then that way you don't have to scramble at the end of the year and say, "Oh my god, I didn't accomplish these things." Well, what do these things actually mean? Is it moving you toward the success point or away from the success point? Because what are you wasting your time on? What are you prioritizing? And it could be working when you say working on your business versus working in your business, is it walking you towards that? Is if it's you wanting to make $1 million, are you doing the things that will make that happen? Or are you
Mhm.
getting lost in the weeds of saying, hey, I need to send out this email, or I need to do something very random that's you could probably outsource, right?
Yeah. What, speaking of social media,
Mhm.
and I'm not going to assume that everyone is on social media, but I feel like a good number of people are on social media already. If
Mhm.
you had to select, which social media platform would you
Mhm.
say would be the best, like maybe starter social
Hmm.
media platform for someone that's not on social media with their business? Or if they're already on social media, which platform do you think they should really focus on? It's so many out there, but I'm just trying to help my viewers and my listeners kind of steer the ship here.
Okay. So no answer.
Okay.
No answer, because it really goes back to that target market that you have to establish.
Okay.
If you establish your target market
Mhm.
and you figure out what kind of person that they are and what they're doing, and kind of create an avatar of who this ideal client would be for you. And don't think of who would buy my stuff, think of who you want to buy your stuff, who is the perfect client if you can pick no matter what. And then when you create an avatar, and I'm saying give them a name. Tell me what they do on the weekends. What
Oh,
kind of job title do they have? Are they a
okay.
dog person? Like
Oh,
really get into it as if it was you were building a friend for your business, a business bestie, if you will. Who is that number one supporter, spokesperson for you? Once you have that established, you know where they are and what they do on a daily basis. So if your target market is a teacher, you're not going to post something at 2 o'clock on a Tuesday because they're teaching a class and
right.
they won't see your content. You're going to post it in the morning, during lunchtime, maybe, if they're not taking kids to recess, or you're going to do it around dinner time or right before bed. Now, Facebook and things like that could help you with those analytics, but you have to start posting on Facebook for Facebook to learn those things. It plays into the algorithm, but if you're posting for the last 5 years, there's a trend that Facebook can tell you and see that says, on this day, naturally your potential client is most active at 2 p.m. How are you supposed to know that if you don't have an avatar or a target market? And so maybe it depends on the age of this person as well. If they're of the younger generation, they might be more so on TikTok or Instagram. But if you're trying to sell Medicare to an 85-year-old, you're probably not going to put it on TikTok because
Right.
they probably don't even know what that is.
Yeah.
Let's be
Yes.
honest. Or they've heard of it and they're like, oh, you young kids. Like, and
Or they got to get their grandkids to help.
yes, yes. And so their grandkids aren't going to look out and be like, Grandma, guess what? I saw something about Medicare on TikTok. Not really a tabletop conversation. Right? Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Yes.
And so once you figure out that person, you'll figure out where they are, when they're most active, and you should be able to figure out what platform suits them best. Now, you have runners up to that situation. It doesn't mean only do Instagram, right? It means that Instagram is where most of your people are. It's also where you get the most engagement. It's where you get the most sales. It's where you get the most interaction. But people that are on Instagram are probably on Facebook, right?
Okay.
And so give or take, right? Or they're probably on TikTok. You can go either way. And so based on that knowledge and information you have, that demographic, it depends on where you should focus your efforts on next. But I would suggest getting good at one thing and then moving on.
Okay.
That way it's not overwhelming.
Right.
Mhm.
And you've spoken about this kind of in your talking about social media and posting and everything, benchmarks.
Mhm.
Explain to us, number one, what is benchmarks? And
Mm.
number two, why is it important to set those benchmarks as you go with your business?
It's super important. Well, benchmarks are whatever you want them to be.
Mhm.
You can, if we're starting out and you don't have social media whatsoever, number one benchmark would be to get social media, to start a profile. And then a next benchmark would be to optimize those profiles for the best use. And then a third one is creating a strategy and a consistent calendar that you're posting. So you're posting 3 times a week at certain times, and then you're deciding what kind of information you're sharing with your audience. There's usually 4 different quadrants of that, and we can get into that later. But if you create consistency, then you can create new benchmarks because then you're established, and now you want to sell 5 people into a workshop via social media. That's a new thing. So it kind of coincides with that business plan saying, okay, we have to take it one step at a time and then we're golden, right? And
Mhm.
so when you're creating benchmarks, and the importance of them is to show market research within the company. It's to show that you're evolving as a company. It's to show your expertise as a company, saying, we know what we're talking about. We have a proven system that we now sell that can take you from 0 to 100. And that, that also that is, your target market, you know what they want, you're solving their problem, you have the solution. Here are the benchmarks for not only you, but them. And
Okay.
so you can have internal benchmarks and then external benchmarks, but everything is organized in a sense. And then you can build a team and you can do the next step in business because you just figured out that after doing 5 workshops that you need to change something within the workshop that would be of more value to your
Mhm.
customers. You can't know that unless you set those prior benchmarks to get you there.
Do you think social media has helped or hurt branding?
Hmm. It's a good question. I think a little bit of both.
Okay.
I think for one, you can reach more people that, you and I are talking from across state lines right now, but that's
Mhm.
not the limitation of social media. You can reach anyone in the world, right? I guess it's like going back to to, to just internet, right?
Mhm.
Um, we created internet. There's so many more capabilities, but it's also overwhelming for a lot of people. And there's a lot of those people that are quick fixes and schemers and MLM and just people that aren't really true to the value that you're looking for. I think it's super great for brand credibility. Again, you need it. You need the awareness,
Mhm.
but at the same time, it creates a lot of mess. And, you know, the doom scrollers, for instance, you are on Instagram or you're scrolling through the discovery feed. You have about 3 seconds until you make a decision. And so now there's rules of making a video, like you have to have movement in the first 3 seconds of a video, or else someone doesn't care. And so before the internet, before social media, there were 7 touch points before someone decides to make a purchase.
Mhm.
Now it's like 20 or more
Right? I did not
because
know that. See, I knew about, people have to see your stuff at least 7 times
not
before,
even
they decide if they're gonna buy or not. It's 20 now?
Yeah, and I would say maybe the number has even risen since the last time I checked, but think about it, you have all of these things going on. How much time do you spend on your phone every day? Does your iPhone tell you that? Because it tells me, and it's kind of disappointing sometimes. But, the average person sees over 5,000 ads a day, and not just on social media and the internet. This is a billboard. This is on TV. This is on a screen somewhere, right? It might even be in your car. I mean, you got Sirius radio,
Yeah.
like there's if you're a doom scroller, it's more like 10,000, right?
Wow.
How do you navigate through all of that muck and that mess to get the message out there? You have to have a plan. And
Mhm.
so I think it goes both ways, but that's why you have to be very specific and even authentic when you're trying to have a presence on social media as a business,
Mhm.
because people can see right through it now. People don't have time for you already. And if
Right.
they do, they're looking for something of relatability. They're looking for a way to be similar to you. If you are buying a house and I am buying a house too, that gives me some sort of human connection,
Mhm.
right? As to where scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll, they can see right through everybody's crap. And
Yeah.
so it's created a much higher need to have a plan for marketing and to have clear messaging. But then you can also dive into like the chat GPT stuff, right? And the
Yes.
AI stuff.
Yes.
Well, ultimately, I think it helps. I think you would be a fool not to look into AI and see how it can bring your business forward, because you're essentially going to hold yourself back if you refuse to accept it, right?
Mhm.
It doesn't mean that your whole business is run by a robot, but if you can have messaging done, if it still can be authentic, but the people that are copying and pasting things or just stealing other people's content or trying to do these quick making money solutions,
Mhm.
it creates a lot of mess and it creates a lot of, I would say, discontent with people, and there's lack of trust now. So that's why the touch points are so much higher, because you have to prove yourself. And if you're
Right.
just flailing around doing whatever, no one trusts you because they don't have a way to connect with you. And so don't be a lazy business owner. Have a plan. You can still use the technology tools to help your business grow and move
Mhm.
forward, but don't take advantage of it and try to, because ultimately you're taking advantage of other people.
Oh, okay.
And that's
Let's
my
talk about consistency a little bit when it comes to social media. Do people need to post something every day? I mean, I feel like it comes down to quantity of your posting or quality of your
Mm,
posting. And
okay.
where is the line with that? Do I need to post something every single day? Do I need to post something 3 times a week, 4 times a week? Is there like a sweet spot where you can have the quality posting and the quantity posting?
I think this is starting to all wrap together. I think that branding, if you
Mhm.
have it established, you have font colors, logo, maybe a logo watermark for social media that's on every graphic that you post, maybe on the corner of every video that you
Yes.
post, that is designed in a way that always represents the brand. You have a series of graphics there that you can be using. Then it comes into the rest of the content as far as consistency, because you don't want to post graphic after graphic after graphic.
Mhm.
Now, the algorithms is also a deep, deep conversation that we can get lost in for each
Yeah.
platform. But essentially, the consistency is key for many of the platforms. Yes, Facebook used to say you should post every day, and so did LinkedIn. And now I would say a sweet spot in general would be at least 3 times a week. I would say 2 to 3 times on all platforms, but it also depends on what kind of business you're in. It still has to be content with substance. And I think establishing that branding up front and that plan of social media is really important, because we do a workshop for social media that teaches people that may have an internal marketing person helping, or a person that posts on social media, that they can do the DIY thing without it taking away from the CEO's responsibilities, right? This is someone's job internally. We'll go in and do a 4-hour workshop, the ins and outs of social media, what to do, what the algorithms say, what's important. And then we also decide on those quadrants I mentioned earlier. But really, what it comes down to is what kind of person that you are if you're public facing for your company.
Mhm.
What kind of personality, personal branding do you have established? What services and products does the company offer? What are your values? And then there's like a wild card of, well, there's education, and then there's also a wild card of behind the scenes. I call it a day in the life of. And so
Okay.
if you structure all of those ideas and show it's just more than buy my stuff, buy my stuff, buy my stuff, it shows that you're a
Mhm.
real person. And then there's a organized consistency that usually plays into personal business,
Okay.
personal business if you're posting 3 times a week. Now you can post different ways. I would say that for every idea or social media prompt, say you are selling a workshop, right? Good example would be that there's 5 ways to post about it. I can
Mhm.
do a graphic explaining what it is,
Okay.
talking about the pain points or the pleasure points of that. I can do a photo of the workshop happening in real life. I can do a video explaining why this is important for people. I can do a carousel showing what happened, what the results were of this workshop. There's so many different ways you can post about one idea. So don't, I'm a firm believer of repurposing content, right? You can talk about the same thing in 5 different ways.
Right.
Then that person is consistent in seeing your content, so they know that what to expect. And when it comes down to it, those are the touch points that make them, or allow them to buy something that will get you that sale. And so for consistency on social media, it's super important. And then also when you establish that schedule, it's also super important not to leave gaps, and not to post one day and not post for a month, because you're
Yeah.
starting from back at square one when you do that, because the algorithms on the platforms it just gets kind of crazy. Like, and
Mhm.
there's not a PSA that comes out that says this is the algorithm that we decided. We kind of have to do that by experience, by working with our clients, being on social media ourselves, having to test out these things, because there are things that happen like, okay, Instagram is a photo-based platform. That's why a
Right.
lot of people like it. And the CEO came out and said, um, remember when we told all of you guys that we wanted you to do reels constantly and like every day? Well, we don't really think that's a thing anymore. It's more like in second place now because we like carousels of photos. And so now it's carousels, videos, and then a static post. And so it just changes frequently, but the most important thing is to have that genuine content that does create that consistency, that gives people the message that they know they're going to get, that instills that message in their brain, and then ultimately creates revenue for you.
You know, YouTube, and I don't know if you've seen this, but YouTube did something very similar to what IG did. They sent out a newsletter, whatever they sent out, that said the exact same thing, that you don't have to do shorts
Mhm,
every day. Initially, when shorts was a thing, when it
mhm,
first came out, they were like shorts, 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 like they were pushing that, and
mhm.
just almost begging you to do them every day. Now they're saying, oh, you don't have to do
Right.
shorts every day. You can do them a couple times a week, and it'll be fine.
Yep.
So it's
Mhm.
changing.
Everything is always changing. That's the
Yeah.
beautiful thing and the very difficult thing about the internet, right? And so you have to keep up with it and, tell me that social media isn't a full-time job.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So going back to the working in your business, not on your business, at least having a plan. If you're going to do it yourself,
Mhm.
let's do a workshop. I'll give you all the tools to do it, and then create a calendar day or an hour a week that you are sitting down and doing the thing. That
Right.
way you're not scrambling, because if you're running around, you're like, I know I have to post today, but I don't know what to post about, and I'm nervous about being on video, and I don't have an outline, and I forgot what I posted about. Now it's been a month, and then you didn't end up doing it anyways. And then wouldn't it have just been easier if we just sat down and did it for, I guarantee you that you can get done a month's worth of posts in a couple of hours if we create that flow for you. It just
Right.
takes the first step. And like I said, we give them all of the tools to do that. I'm not holding anything hostage. And then
Mhm.
it's up to you. Do you have the bandwidth to do this or do you not? Because the DIY success approach ultimately holds you back at a certain point. So we're talking about when we're supposed to update a logo or revisit the brand, you should be
Mhm.
constantly doing that because your content is constantly evolving.
Right. Right. Is there a such thing now as a separation between personal brand and professional brand, or
Mhm.
has it just morphed all into one?
So I like this question. I think I have fun with it because I have done it both ways.
Mhm.
So I would say that it used to be very much let's separate everything.
Right.
Have a separate profile for business, have a separate profile for yourself. But I work with a lot of people that are their personal brand. They're the face of the company. They represent it. I see them at networking groups. They are the
Mhm.
ones making the sales. You have to sync those together. There's a way that now I would say morph them together. And obviously, the algorithms play a part in how you should be posting. So I'm still a fan of having a personal and a business profile, but posting content on your business profile on LinkedIn is great, but now they want you to post that business post on your personal and then share it from your business, right? And the opposite is for Facebook, right? So
Mhm.
how are we supposed to keep up with all of this? Yeah, it's quite a lot. But I think that having both is important,
Mhm.
but you're also holding yourself back if you're only posting on your business and not your personal Facebook, because you have how many friends on your personal Facebook? If
True.
they don't like your
True.
stuff, that's fine, but that's why we create a schedule, and we're not spamming them with the same crap over and over again, and we're not copying and pasting a chat GPT message into their inboxes and say, here's 40 paragraphs by my book. That's why you have to be authentic. And if
Yes.
you're saying, hey guys, I'm reintroducing myself, I know that we're all friends on Facebook. Some of us talked last week, some of us talked yesterday, and some of us haven't talked in 10 years. It doesn't really matter, because what are you doing talking to? I mean, if you're not talking to people in 10 years, then what do you care what they think, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter anymore. But if you're reintroducing yourself on a simple video saying, hey, I'm Caitlin. I know that we come from all different places in the world. I'm reintroducing myself today on my Facebook Live video, saying, "Hey, what's going on in your lives? I want to know I want to know what's up. What are you guys doing in business? If you don't have a business, thanks for the comment below. Please support me. I'm a brand expert. Maybe some of you guys know that I have a business that's Copper Theory Creative. We're a full service marketing agency, and we work on this, and we help people amplify their brands so they can be the best in their business and have the world see them in the best way. Whatever your version of that is, and I can go on and do a whole video for you right now, but if you're just reintroducing yourself on the personal space, then it's giving you more exposure. You're tapping into that market that you've had sitting there this entire time. And then you can also share the same thing to business, or reshare the same video saying, hey guys, look at this. It's the same, you're the same person.
Right.
Not having one person, like, this is entrepreneurship, this isn't corporate. I have the same personality as I do in my personal life as in business, and I hope you guys do too. But there are certain ways to also represent yourself, say in a networking scenario. Again, you don't want to have the 20-year-old headshot.
Yes.
Something that I always do is wear something copper.
Oh,
Copper hair. I have copper jewelry. I have
wow.
copper. People know me as Penny. That is my last name. That's why I did name it Copper Theory Creative.
Oh my goodness. I did not put that together.
You didn't?
I did not.
Okay, so well, side note really quickly, my name is Caitlin Penny.
Right.
I am Copper Theory Creative. I didn't want to put penny on anything because people thought they were getting a discount or something for free. Let's be real. And that wasn't about to happen. So I did copper. Now, copper is also the state that I live in. I'm in Arizona, so we are the copper state. There's also the 5 C's of Arizona, which one of them is copper. Copper is a very versatile element that's in fashion, construction, wiring, art, all kinds of things. So it's very versatile, meaning we work with all kinds of companies. And so copper brings out creativity. It taps into your inner eye. I can get real woo-woo on this. It's also an element on the periodic table of elements. And so that's why I say these are the elements of your brand. We help you amplify your brand because copper is a conductor of electricity. And if we can amplify you to take it to the next step, like turning on that light bulb for people, it helps you change the world in your own way. Also, when you take a penny and add it to something of value, you create change. Mic drop. Okay, see you later, Crystal.
Yes. Yes. I never put that together. You put a lot of thought into that.
That's why it took me 4 months to name the business.
You put a lot of thought into that. That's awesome. Wow. Okay. So what is your intention in the branding space?
So I touched on it a tad, but my intention is to help you change the world in your own way. That is our tagline. And my meaning behind that is that, the average person does see over 5,000 ads a day. While most people use that to figure out where to turn left, what to buy next online, it serves as a design exercise in my brain, right? It's just the way my brain works. So I am a brand expert, and based on all the experience that we just talked about and how I got to where I'm at, if I can help people simplify the journey of marketing and change the world in their own way, because that is the reason that you started your business, that's what you're passionate about, that is what I want to be known as, the brand expert who helped me change the world in my own way.
Oh, very good. So at the beginning of my podcast, I spoke about you being my first.
Yes.
Thank you
Tell us.
for being my first. And what I am talking about is I am located in the great state of Texas, and you are located in the great state of Arizona.
Mm.
And in the back of my head, maybe a couple months ago, one of my benchmarks was to expand outside of the great state of Texas with my podcast and my guests and my interviews. And you are the very first person that I have had on my podcast outside of the state of Texas. So
What?
you are my first.
Oh my God, that's amazing. Congratulations. I had no idea. What?
Thank
Oh, girl,
you.
I have so many people to be on this podcast right now already.
Perfect.
Get a whole list for you.
Perfect. Perfect. So that was one of, speaking of benchmarks for my podcast, one of my benchmarks was to start expanding outside of Texas. And we have a plethora, a number of great people in Texas that I've had the privilege and the blessing to sit down and speak with. And that is not going to stop. But I wanted to expand outside of the state of Texas just to get varying views and viewpoints from other people in other states and other countries as well. So that is also another benchmark of mine, to start interviewing and having people from other countries on my podcast. So you're the first person outside of the state of Texas that I've interviewed on my podcast. And I know that it will not be the last.
That's
so
awesome.
Thank you, Caitlin Penny, so much for being my first.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That's so great. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So 2 final questions as we wrap up this this interview. Number 1, how you have given great information on branding and marketing and entrepreneurship. If people that are listening to this podcast, watching this podcast, want to reach out to you for the different elements that you bring to the marketing and the branding field, how can they do that? How can they reach you? How can they get in touch with you?
Sure. So you can always email me at hello@coppertheorycreative.com. But I'm also all over social media. I mean, how could I not be after talking about that? So I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn mostly. And
what are your handles on those platforms?
What was that?
What are your handles?
So if you want to reach me on a personal level, I am Caitlin0007, like 007 James Bond, except better. And for Copper Theory, it is just Copper Theory Creative on all platforms.
Okay, perfect, perfect. So my final question. Who do you think would make a great guest? And I know you said you had guests, plural.
Yes.
Who do you think would make a great guest on the podcast? But you have to help me get them on.
Okay, great. So easy. Got it. All right. Her name's Megan Ferguson. She was previously Megan Coughlin. She just got married I think it's been about a year now. So congrats, Megan. Megan Coughlin Ferguson is my social media girl. She helps us do everything that we just talked about. She owns Backcourt Marketing, and I think she'd be a great guest because she has probably even more expertise than I do on social media and why that's important. And so she's really great to work with. And I know that her goal and a benchmark of hers is to be on some podcasts. So you're welcome, Megan.
Yes. And Megan will be the second person outside of the state of Texas that I have interviewed. Those benchmarks work.
See, there we go. I hope you
So
all figured out at least one benchmark while you've been listening to this.
absolutely, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Caitlin, for being on the podcast and just sharing all of the information that you have given me and my audience, my listeners, my viewers. You have given your time and your treasure, and I appreciate you so much.
I appreciate you too. Thank you so much, Crystal.
Absolutely. And you can get this podcast and all of my other podcasts on YouTube Podcasts and Apple Podcasts. And remember, you always have time to listen and learn on the go.